Luca one day basically hit me up and was like, hey, I'm trying to buy this project called Pudgy Penguins.
They already had a little bit of a community before you guys acquired it, but you know, that's not enough to take it to where you guys want to go. You guys got to really step in.
First minute, we did like 30-40 million in volume. Just showing up every day, being on spaces, Luca doing consistent interviews back to back, just like literally showing up and showing out. We've actually turned that into Pudgy Penguins now. So for some of you guys who are probably familiar with Pudgy Penguins is essentially a 21st century IP.
How you think AI is going to change our day-to-day life?
Yeah, I mean, on the day-to-day life,
welcome back, everybody, to Elite Entrepreneurs. And today with me, I have an elite entrepreneur, Peter Lobanov, founder of Bureau, CCO of Pudgy Penguins, someone that I admire, look up to, you know what I mean? And a quick story before we even actually start this. The last time we shot a podcast together was 4 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I think the day we shot it, I had lost $25,000 on GameStop and AMC.
Oh, that's right.
And then you took me to dinner, and then we just had like a good 2 hour, just, you know, deep conversation away from my phone to just calm me down. So, you know, I always appreciated you being a big bro, always giving me advice. And yeah, you know, since we last talked, man, Pudgy Penguin was not even in the play then, you know, so much to catch up on. But how you doing, man?
I'm good, dude.
You, bro?
Good seeing you. I mean, I saw you posted a story in Miami. I was like, okay, you got to come say what's up.
100%, bro. No, that is true, bro. I definitely got to come out here more often as well, especially when I have dope-ass people like you here. But for the people that don't know you, man, just tell them a little bit more about yourself. I know I gave a very brief introduction, but please explain a little bit further.
Yeah. So I was formerly founder of Bureau. Bureau is a creative design agency. We've actually turned that into Pudgy Penguins now. So for some of you guys who are probably familiar with Pudgy Penguins is essentially a 21st century IP. We started off in the NFT space, bought the company for $2.5 million with my business partner Luca, Lorenzo, Vedant, and a bunch of other amazing people. Kind of revitalized the company and took it to where it is today. With a live token, with the NFTs doing great. And we're actually now building our own Ethereum L2 called Abstract.
I'm having the drink right now.
Yeah, you're having the Abstract. Shout out to Rec.
Yep. Wanted to taste the flavor.
Yeah, Abstract Green. But yeah, that's a little bit about what we've been doing. So I've known Splash for quite some time now. Mm-hmm. Definitely would like to see more of his content posted religiously. So I was already on his ass for that.
Yeah, no, 100%. Let's talk about the story of that, man, of Pudgy Penguins. How did you get involved in it? You know, did Luca come to you, bring this opportunity to you? And let's start from there. How did you get involved in this?
Yeah, so I was running Bureau at the time with my co-founder Blake. We were pretty much just all things branding, design, web, etc., helping a lot of CPG brands, fintech brands, and eventually kind of made our way into crypto, started helping other companies like Avex and some amazing other companies like Anchor, etc. Luca and we actually go way back. I've known him since I was 13. We grew up in the same neighborhood together. Pretty much had a lot of different business endeavors. That's kind of what got us seasoned to be in this space and to build a business that we have built so far. Luca one day basically hit me up and was like, hey, I'm trying to buy this project called Pudgy Penguins. At the time, he was an avid collector of Pudgy Penguins. Pudgy Penguins was the first NFT he actually showed me. We were in Austin, Texas, during a Gel Blaster deal.
Right.
And he's sitting behind a computer with another guy, and they're basically looking at these JPEGs, and they're like trying to figure out which one to buy. And the first one that they were looking at was Pudgy Penguins. And I was like, what's so fascinating about him? He's like, there's just something there. There's like aura there. So he's always been in love with the Pudgy Penguins IP. And, a few months later, he basically put out a public bid to buy the company for 750 ETH, which at that time was about $2.5 million. ETH hasn't moved since, if you think about it.
Was it at an all-time high then?
Yeah, maybe, yeah. But I think we're still at today's value if you think about it when we bought it. But yeah, he basically reached out and said, hey, like I need a kind of creative face for the brand, and you are the only guy that I can think of on the creative side. And I was like, cool, we'll step in. And then we basically acquired the whole company together. We brought in a few other partners, Lorenzo, who was at the time a CTO. He's now the president of the company. Vidant, he was more so in the community. Now he kind of shaped strategy. So the team kind of grew into their roles that they have today. And so after acquiring it, we thought that the business would be gravy. We'd make money on the trading volume, all the fees, 5% of, hundreds of millions of dollars in trading fees creates a pretty comfortable business. But that took a turn for the worst when platforms like OpenSea basically slashed royalty fees to like zero essentially. And so we had to look at the business through a different lens of like, all right, well, we should just go the conventional route. Like, does Pudgy Penguins have enough IP equity to actually build a sustainable business outside of NFTs? And so we were one of the first to actually trailblaze the space and launch toys that were essentially derivatives of the NFTs. Right. We actually licensed the toys from the holders, and we paid them royalties for every toy that was sold. And so that was a journey. We launched it first on Amazon. That was a blowout sale. We were the #1 toy trending in the category, which was awesome, which goes to show you the power of community. Right. And shortly after, we were like, all right, well, how can we play the retail game? And us as being, CPG guys and retail guys, we pretty much had an understanding of what it was like to kind of go to retail mass. Mm-hmm. And we went to Walmart, the first place, and we were like, hey, here's Pudgy Penguins. Do you guys want to take it? They said nope. They closed the door and sent us on our way. So that was a very discouraging moment. But shortly after, with the Amazon success and sell-through, we actually used that as a way to leverage our way back into Amazon and to Walmart, and to say, hey guys, look, like there is a significant amount of PMF here. Would you guys want to, give us a second chance? And so not only did they stock us, but they actually rolled us out on a pallet program across 2,000 stores. So for those of you,
what's the pallet program?
So the pallet program is it's a pretty big deal if you think about it. You're not just in an aisle. You have your own individual pallet that's just sitting in the middle of Walmart. Right. And so that's a pretty big deal for brand exposure. And a brand that has no TV show, no movie, no game, non-recognizable product beyond just the likeness of the name itself, to do that is like nearly impossible. And so shout out to Luca and his sales techniques to actually get the deal done. And so Walmart took a big bet on us, and we rolled out across 2,200 stores on a pallet program. And week over week, we started selling them out. The entire NFT space was ignited because they were like, hey, this is something that we can galvanize behind. And so that kind of created a domino effect of, cementing Pudgy Penguins in the space of Web3 and NFTs. Beyond NFTs, we started rolling out Instagram content that you kind of see today.
Everywhere.
Yeah, has amassed in almost 2 million followers. Our videos are doing north of millions of views. We have a really big Giphy presence. So even if you don't know about Pudgy Penguins, you're constantly texting. I was literally
just gonna tell you that I have a friend, and then I was just talking to her one day, and she sends me like a Pudgy Penguin GIF, and I'm like, "Do you know this?"
Yeah.
And she's like, "No," which is cute, and I'm like,
do you know what you just sent?
No, genuinely, I was like mind blown. That's when I realized, this is bigger than just NFTs.
It's big.
You know what I mean? And I think what you guys have done is definitely revolutionary in the crypto and NFT space. And I want to talk about the toys, the community, the content, and all that. But I want to get started in the early stages, because I feel like when you guys acquired it, it wasn't really the best time in the market. If probably the worst, because I think every NFT was just getting shot down to they were going down like 99%, right? Yeah. And you guys had just acquired this new business. Talk to me about those days, man. Like, how was that like motivating your team, still keeping the vision, even though this is going on in the market? Yeah, and I think we bought the brand at Pico top of NFTs. Bored Ape was at egregious prices. You had other successful NFTs that were, in the tens of hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars for a JPEG. And so, the euphoria kind of convinced us to buy the business and to find some sort of sustainability in that. And, after we acquired, we quickly realized that we were in the end tail of NFT narrative and kind of momentum there. And so what ended up happening was the whole slashing of fees, then NFTs took a negative connotation, right? At first, the public was like, NFTs are a scam, they're a joke. And so, that wasn't the best in the eye of publicity, to go and talk to people about NFTs. They were just like, ugh. And, what also happened was when we were trying to grow the team and hire artists and animators, 99% of them said no to coming on board. Wow. Yeah, we would put out a job summary and say, hey, like, we're hiring artists, full comps, etc., great pay.
And so they were like, cool, I'm applying for this. As soon as they get to the interview and they did any DD on the business, they were like, oh, you guys are NFTs. We're no longer interested. Every single person that we would try to hire would no longer be interested in the business. So it made it really hard for us to attract good talent because good talent was allergic to NFTs. And so that mixed with like market sentiment kind of shifting away, we really were like in the ugliest business you can possibly be in. But the thing that kind of held us through was the community. I mean, the community was already there before us. You know, the community under new leadership was a little bit more motivated to kind of stay here. And so just showing up every day, being on spaces, Luca doing consistent interviews back to back, just like literally showing up and showing out. And then we arrived at a place where we were like, all right, we need to capitalize this company some way. And so we had to raise. Raising took nearly 6 months, thousands of calls, thousands of no's. I mean, you want to talk about, you know, dealing with 1,000 no's before you get to your one yes. That's exactly what happened to us. Like we would not know what people would give us tentative offers, and you know, eventually people would shy away. What was the common things
you guys were hearing in this process when you're trying to raise money?
Yeah, I wasn't in. So Lorenzo and Luca were the guys who were kind of getting on those calls, but sentiment was like really bad. I mean, we had the whole FTX collapse. That was also right there as well too.
Oh my God, yes.
And so right around that time, you know, we had some tentative offers from those organizations, and then when the collapse happened, you know, so did those LOIs, and so that really put us in a really tough spot. And so for months, we just kept pounding the pavement, just like asking people to believe in us. And you know, the community was there, it was strong, and they were behind us. And so we used that as a way to leverage. And so a few people, I mean, shout out to 1KX and a couple other Chads who basically invested into us. They believed in us and believed in the team, what nobody has. And so we really thank, you know, them and all the early believers into the business. It wasn't easy raising that first round.
Sure, for sure. And I think, you know, I want to touch on the community side, because it already had a little bit of a community before you guys acquired it, but you know that's not enough to take it to where you guys want to go. You guys got to really step in, and what I do notice is the Pudgy Penguin community is strong, man. Everyone on Twitter, they got their Pudgy still on their Twitter. I know email marketers. Still using. It's okay. We're keeping it on. That are still like putting their Pudgy, you know, thing on. And you even said Vedant, you know, someone that's, I think, head of strategy, he came from the community. So talk to us about, like, let's, I guess, first talk about the importance of the community, you know, in this, and how you guys have been able to create such a strong community.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that you can kind of attribute to it is, you know, the NFTs at the time were the best kind of incentive mechanism, right? If you look at it, like every person who's had the NFT, they were essentially a brand participant. Right. They were like an affiliate on crack, right? Like they had this appreciating or depreciating asset that depended on whether how much they've preached the vision, how much they've kind of galvanized behind the vision. So a lot of bags, right, were at stake here. And so a lot of people who held the NFTs, you know, they were like, all right, well, we got to do something to push it. So it was the best incentive mechanism for everybody to get kind of aligned behind this one vision. And, you know, the 4,000 holders that we had at the time, you know, that's 4,000 potential network effects, you know, 4,000, you know, each one of those people tells their friend, and then their friend tells others. And so it was a network effect that played out truly at its best potential. And so that's one of the biggest reasons on why Pudgy Penguins has succeeded. That's kind of our thesis, is we're a community-led brand, right? A lot of the decisions that are made for the business are kind of shepherded by the community's notes and ideas. We have very open kind of forums and outlets. We have an inner igloo, we like to call it, every other Sunday, where people can get on stage and basically contribute their ideas. And so just doing that relentlessly, you know, put us in a position where we're like, all right, we had the confidence of the community to make something great here. Some great hires came from the community. Vedant was not from the community per se. He was very much involved in the kind of the narrative and the strategy and maintaining the positive sentiment. It eventually kind of grew into this role of all things like high-level strategy, like really having a good finger on a pulse, if you think of it. And so that's really what it required. It required a lot of Web3 native people who understood community building, who understood, you know, how to galvanize people behind a specific message, which kind of arrived at where Pudgy Penguins is at today.
100%. I think also you guys as leaders, you engage with your community, you know, and I think like sometimes it's crazy as it sounds, like it's rare. Yeah. Right. That like people, like I always see Luca replying to people, just, you know, again, hosting calls and such. And I think like I actually don't even know the owners of any other NFTs really like that. They're not really engaged or and I think that a lot of people just believed in your vision. And I remember coming to the event, I think in 2022, the Art Basel one. I just happened to be here, and I think it was around the time of the FTX, so like the sentiment was pretty low. But however, like the community was still strong. They showed up. They came to the event, showed up, and now you just showed me the building in public for the last Art Basel event, and just seeing the growth of that, man. It's just amazing to see. You know what I mean? Touching on your side of things, the creative side, I wanted to talk about the content, because like I said, that story of like my friend just sending me the Pudgy Penguins, that's when I realized, man, you guys have really cracked it. So I would love to hear like, your thought process of just rolling out the content and just, all the things you guys did with that, right? The Instagram reels, the GIFs, all that. I would love, let's talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, we're a internet native brand. Instead of going through conventional ways, which we obviously thought about. We thought about building a game and spending millions of dollars. We thought about launching a movie, which requires millions of dollars in resources and marketing. We thought about a TV series. We've had pitches come left and right from really high-level studios and executives. And, that was great and all, but the problem was that, like, you see where modern media is kind of headed, right? Like, we're all on TikTok, we're all on Instagram and Facebook, and so we kind of looked at those channels as like the primary way to build the business. And so there were a lot of different strategies we can play. The strategy that we kind of went down was in this a relationship-centric humor, kind of riffing on internet culture and creating relatable videos that kind of incentivize people to share it, right? And so a lot of the videos, like if you look at our analytics, the shares are insane. Right, like you sending a video and to your girlfriend and being like, "That's you," right? Or or the boyfriend sending it to your girlfriend saying, "That's totally you," right? That was an additional network effect that kind of took shape of its own. A lot of it was rooted in like natural, organic virality, just kind of really just dialing in like what is super popular in internet culture, right? Like what are popular memes and narratives that we can tap into. And so we just really just started dialing into that. And then what happened was the rest of the NFT space followed suit. They also started doing short form content. They all started doing animations. And, a lot of guys who were kind of copying our strategy didn't work out for them. A lot of guys found their own path. We kind of found the sweet spot where we can just optimize for user joy, and we can optimize for shareability. We can optimize for discovery, right? Like you didn't need to know the brand, but you could just know the dynamic between Pengu and Polly, which are the primary characters on our Instagram.
Right.
And so that was like one of the things that naturally kind of took shape of its own. Like we spent a lot of time figuring out hundreds of thousands of dollars in trying out different creative partners. We've thankfully, Bureau was a creative adjacent business. And so, we had a lot of already existing talent that we were like, hey, let's just migrate everybody to Pudgy Penguins. So we didn't have to do a lot of the training and the kind of the seasoning that is required to bring on new talent. We just brought over everybody from Bureau, which had a range of 3D artists, 2D animators, illustrators, graphic designers, web. Like we kind of had our own creative studio internally, basically.
Right.
And so that was a really good blessing in disguise, honestly, like to have a studio that is capable of this, to have reach and to have exposure in that regard. And so we were just able to just utilize the resources we had. And then once funding came in the picture, we were able to double down on what's worked. And so, the gifts were something that the community really optimized for. Like shout out to Burko, who's kind of shaping and overseeing the gifts and tenor and things like that. That took its own life. That was also like just trying a bunch of different things resulted in like finding success quickly. Like the whole point of it was to get to failure as soon as possible. Right. And so how can we get to failure without having to overextend ourselves financially? Right. And so we just used the resources we had at hand. We had an animation studio. We had somewhat of an animation studio. We had a desirable, team that was capable of going out there and producing their own content and sharing it on their own, aka the gifts. Right. And so that just started taking a life of its own. And so it's not something that we seeded a lot of the ideas, but a lot of the execution was a combination of community. It was us. We like to think of ourselves as the community doesn't work for us, right? The community is with us. These brand participants are making the decisions and shaping the brand going forward. So it wasn't us like jumping on a spaces and telling them like, this is what we're going to do. And none of you, and your feedback is not relevant. It was like, we have a bunch of different ideas. We got into a forum with 200 people who all had Pudgy Penguin NFTs, and we asked them, and we don't know who these people are. behind their PFPs.
Right.
And so sometimes you bring up people who have very valuable insight, or you might bring up a person who's like, hey, my uncle's a director here, right? Wow. Or you say, hey, I'm actually a producer, or like, hey, I actually write a script. The person that we hired to do our scripting and our storyboarding for animations, she came from the community. She saw the animations we were producing. She sent me an email. She was like, hey, I'd love to help with your content strategy. And at that point, we had a lot of people solicit us. And she reached out, and I was like, cool, give me an idea that you feel like can reach millions of people. If we like the skit, we'll produce the skit. I want you to manage the skit all the way through. So you're just coming in cold. You don't know the team that you're working with. I want you to shape what your vision was for this skit, work with the animation team, give them the feedback to see how your vision can play out.
Right.
Now, mind you, before that, our videos were doing under 1 million views. That video that she produced got us 30 million views, and today it's like the third largest, highest viewed video that we have.
Off the rip.
And I gave her a job right there and then. Wow. And that was like a person that came from the community, all because we were receptive, we were very open-minded, and so, it was a culmination of community and us just like continuously, nonstop working, not for the community, but with the community.
Right. What are some other things that you've rolled out where it came from community feedback and, or just like an aha moment when you guys were engaging with?
Yeah, I think the bigger thing that came out was also licensing the penguins from the holders. Right. We created a platform called Overpass, which allowed us to license the likeness of the NFT from the holder because they own that NFT.
This is new, right? No one else has done this before?
No, this didn't exist. I mean, you think of any traditional IP business, like they're not just going to go and listen to a random fan tell them how they should produce their content, right? And so we were just very receptive to the feedback and the ideas, and so therefore, all the things that we have today, majority of the things were obviously derivative ideas from community members.
Wow. I wanted to talk about, like I said, we just watched the new building in public that's about to come out. Before I even get to my next question, let's talk about that series, because I think when you guys dropped the first episode, I was watching it. I shared it to all my friends, like, yo, you guys got to check it out. Especially, and I think outside of that, there was a video as well when you and Luca were just having a conversation just about business.
Yeah.
Dude, so valuable.
Yeah. So
valuable. So talk about the thought process of that and why you guys wanted to document as you guys were building this.
Yeah, it was, the business, the NFT business, especially in crypto, the idea of being doxxed, aka being, having your real face, not your PFP, wasn't so popular. And so to bring more trust and credibility to the business, we were like, why don't we just go and put ourselves, out there as well? Mm-hmm. And so just to really instill that sense of trust and security into the business. And so I wanted to kind of create this like documentary that was a little bit of like TV show vibes. Like you had the confessionals, you have
so good,
and it's really hard to kind of capture a lot of that and keep up with it and really capture the raw moments of Pudgy Penguins. But we try to do our best in capturing like the real pivotal moments that really make the brand. And the idea was, not just to have this, who are these anonymous founders? It was like, hey, we're right here, we're right in front of the audience. But it was also to like eventually shed light on the business, right? And on the crypto industry as a whole, right? Like there's this small pocket of people who just so happen to be operating in a multi-billion-dollar sector, but it's just not so popular, right? And they're trying to make things work. And so eventually, hopefully, building in public ages gracefully, where people are like, those guys were one of the first to do it. And so we're still trying to keep up with it. Anybody who's a young entrepreneur, crypto or not, you can watch, the resilience.
So
you can
compelling. So compelling. Like, shout out to your team. I know Broski's there right now, but such a good job. Like, I think, you saw our reaction as we just finished watching how, like, amazed we were. Yeah. And like, even I'll tell you, like, there were some moments where it just, again, reminded me of like a reality TV show. You know what I'm saying? Like with like just the pickleball and everything. Yeah. It's really, really cool. But that episode was about something that you guys had launched, I believe, earlier this year.
In December, we launched our token.
Okay,
Pengu.
So let's talk about that. So what was the thought process of launching that? And let's talk a little bit more about the launch as well.
Yeah, so the idea came to us because there was two reasons. One, before we bought Pudgy Penguins, there was this kind of very deep crypto lore. There's a prolific trader. He goes by the name of GCR, worth billions of dollars. Very, very reputable. A lot of people look at his words and look at them as like statements of God, right? And so one of the interesting tweets that he put out is, if Pudgy Penguins launched Pengu, it could flip Doge.
Wow.
And so that was one of those kind of big narratives that people
That's a
bought behind.
bold goal, you know.
That's a really bold
That's something to
statement,
get
yeah.
excited over.
Yeah. And so that really, kind of created this like deep crypto mimetic prophecy that needed to be fulfilled, which was like, if Pudgy Penguins, when they launch this token, it will eventually surpass and become the biggest meme of them all. And so that kind of sends chills up your spine. The other side of it was the NFTs became so expensive for anybody to buy into, right? Like you're just exposed to the Pudgy Penguins brand, and then next thing you know, if you want to participate in the ecosystem, you have to spend $30,000 for an NFT. Like there's got to be a way to offer a product to the masses for us to take this incentive engine that's worked with just the NFTs, right? With the small community of 4,000 resilient people, and bring it out more mass, right? And so Pengu, the second idea, was to essentially create the ultra alignment incentive mechanism through this token. And so now you look at your top of funnel goes from this expensive, highly appreciative asset to now everybody can participate. Just buy $1 worth, $5 worth. Now you can couple $100,
hold it,
right? Exactly. And you could either buy it because you're a trader and you're trading on the ups and downs of the token, or you can buy it because you're a firm believer in the brand. And this is just our way of kind of tokenizing the community and getting more people to participate. And now we're crossing 1 million wallet holders.
Wow.
That hold Pengu,
Wow.
right? We went from 4,000
to
1 million.
Wow, yeah.
Right. And so
I think taking advantage of all that growth that you guys have had, and like you said, making it easier for someone to convert or hold an asset that is yours. You know what I mean? I think you were telling me there was some negative sentiment with Pengu that you guys rugged it. I'd love for you to clarify that. You know,
Yeah.
just to again clear your name.
Yeah.
I know that that's not the truth.
Yeah. I mean, meme coins, have a negative or a mixed feeling kind of connotation to it. And so when we launched Pengu, obviously our intentions are not to just rug and disappear.
Right.
I think the space has historically been filled with that, and a lot of people get burned.
Up
and
to
so,
a coin.
Literally. And so a lot of people were very skeptical about where this thing can go beyond its launch. And so traditionally everybody thinks, all right, well, this thing peaks out, right? Like everybody galvanizes behind it. Our momentum in the lead up to launch of Pengu was massive, right? Like we had, TikTok, Instagram, we had the entire space of crypto all galvanized behind this idea of Pengu, right? Everybody was excited. Everybody was going to have an opportunity to make money. The holders who were participating in the ecosystem since day one were essentially have an opportunity to cash out, right, from their participation. And so you kind of reward the early believers, but you also create an incentive mechanism to let new participant and new entries in, right? And so when we launched, because of the hype, we created a lot of buy pressure for the product, which essentially shot the token up to 5 billion.
Wow.
Which was great.
The first day?
The first, the first, 10 minutes we did, $30-40 million. The first minute we did like 30-40 million in volume.
Wow.
We had over 5 million people visit the site. It was like that day, all trying to claim Pengu. We airdropped a little over $1 billion to the entire ecosystem of crypto as a whole. So to OG Solana holders, OG holders of other prolific meme coins as well. And so, that created a euphoric moment in the entire space. And so it was all gravy for the first couple of weeks. And then you have other meme coins that launch like Trump, Melania, Argentina token. And so you have a lot of other tokens in the mix. A lot of people wanted to rotate some of their profits, their holdings into these other new exciting things that are going on.
Right.
And so that obviously impacted price.
For sure.
Because a lot of people on TikTok and Instagram bought into the narrative, we had a lot of people who were essentially received an airdrop of like $60,000. They were selling into that buy pressure. So a lot of people on TikTok were essentially losing money as well.
Right.
And so that kind of created a not so good narrative around Pengu post-launch. Pre-launch, it was like the best thing. It was like fulfill the prophecy. This thing's going to billions. Right. And so we did that, right? But, it came with the downside of a lot of people who bought in at the moment of huge sell-offs, right? And a lot of the early believers kind of capitalizing on it. And so, after the Trump thing, a lot of people rotated their money into Trump. A lot of people lost money. A lot of people made money. Then a lot of people lost money on Melania, Argentina coin, like all these different crazy narratives that kind of unfolded after launching Pengu. And so, you can't control market, can't control, how people, feel about the brand. The only thing that we can do is just kind of show up. And so though a lot of the non-educated retail folks, who we're really trying to optimize for, have a kind of a sour taste. And when I say a lot, I mean like those people who bought in from Instagram and TikTok narratives, bought into it, they lost money, right? And then that didn't help a lot after, Trump and Melania launched their tokens. And so that just kept driving price down. And so thankfully the narrative shook out. One of the biggest attributes to why it shook out today is because we just didn't disappear. We were nonstop showing up. We had brand deal announcements after brand deal announcements. Pudgy Penguins Pengu was not an end-all, be-all.
Right.
It was the mark of a new beginning. And so that's kind of how we've arrived today.
And I think I like how your perspective on right now is like it's at the perfect price for people that believe in us to buy in.
Exactly.
Buy into the vision
Exactly.
for the future.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And I think, again, you guys as leaders, I have a lot of trust in you that it's gonna go back, man. It's gonna be amazing. Another company, like I said, you're working on, Abstract. Would love to talk a little bit more about that. So what was the thought process of starting this, and what's the vision with this?
Yeah, so a couple ideas came to mind when we were thinking about building our own chain.
Or why? Why
Yeah,
you want to build your own chain?
Yeah. The first idea was, Pudgy Penguins has kind of two sides of the business. We have the Web3 side, which is the NFTs and the token. And then we have the conventional, traditional IP building business. And so the Web3 side of things, we've already done as much as we can do.
Right.
And so we had to kind of reverse our thinking and say, all right, well, the appreciation of all the products in Web3 are going to come from the success of the Web2 business, which is building a traditional IP business with successful toy sales, millions of views, millions of fans, massive familiarity around the IP. The success of the NFTs and the token will inevitably be the byproduct of the success of the Web2 business.
Right.
And so we had to kind of hire the necessary people to help us build out a sustainable Web2 business, which is long. It's a 5, 10, 15, 20-year game. Once Pudgy Penguins hits 5 years, which we're on our 3rd year, approaching 4th closely, Pudgy Penguins will become a legacy brand at that point. 100%. Like at the 5-year mark, it is a legacy brand. Anything after that is just natural, just brand appreciation. We'll have ups and downs. That's very natural in the space of IP, but it's already positioned on its way there. So there's not much we can do on the Web3 side of things. The team kind of looked at it and like, all right, what else can we do? And so we
revolutionize as much as you can.
Yeah, there's not much we can do from the Pudgy Penguin side of things besides just show up and ship. And so we kind of came up with this idea of like, all right, what can we do for the greater space of crypto, right? Like we need to solve this cold start problem of like bringing more people on chain. And so we formed Igloo. Igloo is the parent company that owns Abstract, Cube, and Pudgy Penguins, and other endeavors that we have. And so forming Igloo, our mission was to onboard the next 100 million people on chain. Right. And so you're going to do that by trying to start from the ground zero, which is building technology, not even building because a lot of the technology already exists, but taking technology and making it more commercially available. Right. And so Abstract is kind of like the day one of that. We had to set up a foundation. We like to, through some lenses, we like to call it, Abstract will power kind of like the new internet. Right. Amongst other chains as well. And so the chain game, the network game, I kind of look at it as like these cities, right? You have Solana, which is a city of its own. Right. You have Ethereum. You have Abstract, which is like the culture layer that kind of lives on top of Ethereum. You have Base, and you have all these other networks out there. They're their own cities with their own thriving economies. And so we wanted to create an economy of our own, right, where we can vertically kind of build these consumer experiences. So you set the foundation with Abstract. We have a consumer-facing product, which is the portal, which people can go and create their wallet, explore other Web3 products. And now it's just building new attractions in the city, right? Apps, experiences, things that reach
the city.
Exactly. So that's kind of how we that's kind of how we came about Abstract.
You know, we've talked a lot about your businesses, the different things you guys are doing inside of your businesses, right? Wanted to talk a little bit more about you as an entrepreneur, going from running a creative agency to NFT, now just building business in the crypto world. Like, talk about your evolution as an entrepreneur, I guess, since we last talked, you know, which is 4 years ago. And just the growth you've seen in yourself, you know, because now the stakes are higher. So the highs are highs, but the lows are as low, right? Or lower, you know what I mean? So talk about that, man, how that's been. And another thing I also want you guys to kind of touch on is like how you guys, like your perspective on building businesses, you know, differently, like in an unconventional way. Because I feel like you just didn't follow a path that was already laid out. You guys kind of went and said, all right, like let's build our own roads. You know what I'm saying? Just kind of your approach to business in that way as well.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a two-part question, but yeah.
So I've always been an aspirational entrepreneur. I got started very early at like 14. I started off with selling sneakers online and jewelry online. This was when Instagram first kind of caught wind. Mm-hmm. I had a page at the time, it was like 10,000 followers. I was able to kind of leverage the likeness of these sneakers and the jewelry and create this kind of like, not so fan page, but this like using the likeness of other brands to build the likeness of my page. And I started selling sneakers and shoes, and you know, I sold to a lot of celebrities: Justin Bieber, Chris Brown, you know, Kevin Hart, and you know, I was doing that in high school.
In LA? In
LA, yeah. And I remember actually there was a person who reached out who was like, hey, like I want to get involved. And so I ended up basically raising capital at like 15 years old. So I raised like $8,000 to basically put the purchase orders of some of the sneakers, which was pretty interesting at the time. Actually, I just remembered that a couple of days ago. I was like, damn, I've been fundraising for a while.
Yeah, man. Different amounts.
Yeah, different amounts. Literally 8,000 to, you know, where we're at now. And so, you know, I've kind of always wanted to chase that like financial freedom. And so coming from a not so financially stable household, I was homeless at some point. I was sleeping in U-Haul trucks and trying to wake up and go to high school, which then kind of led me to drop out of high school in 9th grade because it was like super tough at home.
Right.
And, you know, that kind of entrepreneurship spirit led me to try a bunch of different things. One of the things I am thankful for was not having the fear to fail. So I tried so many things without this idea, and I didn't have any financial security to fall back on if something failed. Like everything I failed in was a catastrophic failure to me, especially at a young age. And everybody I'd run into would be like, yo, you're so young. I'm like, I don't see it that way. You know, I'm old spirited. I'm young, but I'm old spirited. And if I don't figure this out now, I'm not going to be successful. I'm not going to get my parents out of the slum. I'm not going to help my brother or anything like that. So that kind of entrepreneurial spirit and like that ability to fail quickly and just get to the next thing allowed me to learn a lot of things. So I like to think of myself as, you know, I have a specialty. So I'm a specialist in certain areas, but trying many different things allowed me to know a little bit about a lot.
Right.
Which, you know, took me down this path of doing hospitality, e-commerce, tech, fashion, right? I've had years of experience and I did a lot of those things really well. Like my fashion brand was featured on GQ Style, right? I had, you know, Sway Lee, and I used to style, Sway Lee for music videos. I used to, you know, drop off care packages to... Yeah,
yo, those were lit, man.
That was a brand with Little Pump that we had.
Yeah. Oh my god.
So I had a lot of those different trials and errors that I've had, but they were all kind of creative adjacent. So I always stuck to a creative centric business, whether it's hospitality, culinary, it's like very creative adjacent, fashion, you know, creative, design, creative, brand creative, etc. And so I tried pretty much a lot of everything at a very early age. And so by the age of 17, I opened up my first atelier. It was a garment manufacturing studio in Los Angeles. I had 3 employees, a beautiful studio at 17, right? And like I was already having
high school dropout.
High school dropout, like literally took some funding from some awesome investors as well. I actually raised another time, it was $60,000 I raised to start this business. And so, you know, I learned a lot. I made a lot of mistakes, but that ability to not be afraid of failure was always kind of rooted. And there's that little flame inside of you that wants to try more. And, yeah, the downs were pretty bad too, because like when I failed, there was delinquencies in rent, right? There was like my lady and I, we would have to eat Subway sandwiches every single day for like a year, right? And like I remember us going to Subway and we wouldn't even buy the sandwiches that were like, oh, you can a la carte custom make them. It was the special of the day because that was like so much more affordable.
Right.
And so just living like that and getting by consistently, all for the sake of this mission of like getting out, trying to find success and whatever, I ended up kind of finding myself in. And so it's funny because the way that where I've kind of arrived to today, Bureau was a business that allowed me to tap into all different types of businesses from an agency standpoint. I was able to help some amazing brands. We took a fintech company to north of $1 billion valuation in a little over a year, got backed by A16Z. We grew consumer product brands like Gel Blaster, to hundreds of millions in revenue. We did a lot of things in between, and through an agency, it allowed me to kind of exercise a lot of those creative wants and needs, and to even fail on somebody else's dime too, not just on my dime.
Right.
And so all of that kind of came full circle when we acquired Pudgy Penguins, because like it took all those years of figuring out the do's and don'ts and the rights from wrongs to kind of get to a place where you're still young enough, right? So I'm still in my 20s to basically avoid those costly mistakes that you would make if you had raised tens of millions of dollars and then lost that, right? So I kind of did it on a more conservative scale, but never being afraid of failure and always having your back against the wall, that every decision that you make, you go 2 feet into it at all times.
And then that's easier said than done, because I feel like a lot of people don't start something or quit because of that fear of failure. You know what I'm saying? So what would you say to those people, like just giving that change of perspective on how you approach this?
No one's going to judge you by your failures, right? Like your wins are going to get celebrated along the way, but no one, if you think somebody cares about you, they don't. That's the reality, right? Like if you're sitting here and over-indexing, if people think about how, if how you come off and like what you said, like, dude, the world moves at the speed of light, right? Especially with internet today, it's like here today, gone tomorrow. So you can't pigeonhole yourself on this idea that if you fail, everybody else is going to look at you as a failure. Just move on to the next thing. And that's been such a traditional way for every entrepreneur, is like once you fail on this thing, go to the next one, and you have to know when it's time to pivot, right? And you have to know when it's time to change perspective, right? Getting out of your hometown is a big advice that I would have. Like go somewhere, go to Miami if you're a young entrepreneur. Come to Miami, right? Come to a city that's live. Come to New York, come to Los Angeles, right? Like get out from your hometown if you're living somewhere in the middle of America. Get out, get a change of perspective, find better mentors. Like where the question is always where. Right now you can get to anybody online. Before you couldn't really get to people online. There weren't podcasts. No. There weren't like really extensive YouTube gurus and things like that. Like all that started coming about in 2016, 17, right? And then now that kind of birthed a new generation of entrepreneurs. And so you can't be afraid of failure. You have to get out there and get different perspective. And that all comes down if you want it bad enough. Right? If you want it bad enough, you're going to fail in this thing and you're going to go to the next thing relatively early. If you don't want it bad enough and you're going to sit there and sulk, well, you're not going to get anywhere. And stop thinking that people think so much of you. They don't. They don't give a shit about you, right? Like those people will celebrate you on your way up, and then your network is going to open up even more. And then, the risks get larger, right? Like us failing as Pudgy Penguins will be a domino effect of failure across all different organizations, right? You're going to let the holders down, right? You're going to, this amazing brand that has such positive sentiment around it, people are going to be like, wow, like they really fucked up. So the stakes get higher when you're playing at these levels, but you then hire amazing people to help kind of mitigate those losses. But you as an entrepreneur in your early days, there's no reason why you can't try shit and fail religiously. Your job is to be, I need to get to point of failure as fast as possible. Let me figure out what's wrong with this business as soon as I can. And the sooner that you will do it, you're going to have a lot of that learning curve, right? You're going to figure out the do's and don'ts, and you're going to be able to get on to the next thing and use those learnings across the way. And then eventually you'll find in your spot where you're like, I found my groove. I found who I'm supposed to be, right? I found my lane. Try shit as early as you can, because eventually you will find the thing that you're naturally good at. And then it's going to feel super euphoric because people are going to pay you a large sum amount of money for it. And you're going to be like, I almost don't even deserve this, right? But it's because you found your natural calling. You wouldn't have never found it if you're too scared to make that first jump.
100%. And you don't really learn when things are going well. I mean, you learn, but you don't really learn, or it doesn't hit you when things are going well. You know what I mean? It's really in the time of like the hard times, the failing is why people pay you, really. You know what I'm saying? I think the biggest benefit I can bring people is all the mistakes I've made.
Totally.
So for them to not make those, you know what I mean? Then rather than all the good things I've done as well. And you touched on something there, like, you know, he has to, like, you have to give a fuck. Like, you know, it has to be big enough. Like, so what was that for you? You know, what was your big why as to why you were always pushing through, even through times of adversity?
Yeah, because if I didn't, I'd be sleeping outside in the U-Haul truck.
Right.
You know, like, my mom wouldn't be taken care of. My brother wouldn't be taken care of. I had a lady who I'm like on a come up with, right? Like, it's the stakes are still high even in that moment itself, right? But you just want to have to want it bad enough for you to not to go there. And like, you know, tough times make strong men. And I think I'm a pretty strong guy. I have a pretty thick skin. I'm pretty resilient to a lot of the nonsense and stress that comes. You know, now at the level at which we're operating, the stress is a lot higher, and it's not something I've experienced before. So crash outs are a little bit different nowadays. But still, you just got to be able to want it bad enough, and you got to push. And it's like, you know, there's this guy that came to our office. He acquired Michael Jackson's estate and basically, you know, took it to where it is today. And he's producing Michael Jackson's biography movie. You know, sometimes it's hard when you get to a different level. Sometimes it's hard to figure out like the whys, right? Or like knowing when is enough. And you could either be the go-getter or you could be the person who's complacent with what you have today. Right. If you're the kind of guy who wants the yachts and the boat, the houses, the cars and everything, you're going to continuously have to grind for that. Like, that shit does not stop. The more you want, the more you're going to have to grind for. The less you want, the less you're going to have to grind for. And maybe you can be thankful for what you have today. So it all depends on the person, right? I want it bad enough. Maybe I don't want a yacht, right? But I want a bigger house that I live in now, right? I'm tired of living on the streets. I don't live on the streets now. But I was tired of being homeless, right? So like I always had this picture moment, this like manifestation is real. 100%. I promise you. It's not the silly, you know, manifest. It's like, no, it's manifesting is just having an image, a clear, concise goal in your mind, and just constantly pushing towards it. And you can remove the things that are in the way of that, and you can focus on the things that are pro that mission. So I've always closed my eyes. I've always manifested the lifestyle that I want, and I've always chased it. And anything near that, I was always critical of myself, and I wasn't happy. And so, you know, that created new lows. But the chase was there because I had this vision in my head, and I still have a specific vision. 100%. Now, what happens when I get to that vision? Tune in to find out. Let's say the first chapter of your entrepreneurial life, forget about balance and mental health. Facts. None of that. Like, you just grind yourself to dust just to find success, find product market fit in whatever you're building. There's none of that. Mm-hmm. So I did that for like 10, 12 years, which like made me not obese, but like obviously fat as fuck. And so that, like, not taking care of yourself, all are consequences of just focusing on the mission. Mm-hmm. There's no balance, right? Like, even in a relationship, you know, I had to tell who's now my fiance, you know, like, work is here, then it's everything. And so it's kind of fucked up. Right. But like, I'm not going back to where I was before. I just can't. I'm fucking scarred from that. Yeah. And so the first 10 years was all about grinding and just like the mission. Up until a year and a half ago, you know, I was like, all right, cool. I did the things that I needed. I built enterprise value. Mm-hmm. What can I be doing myself to kind of unlock that next chapter of my life? And do it in a way where I can reap the fruits of my labor and not have to, you know, eat medicine to survive, right? And so it required cutting all the nonsense. So I just started eating whole foods, going, you know, I didn't call it a keto diet. I just cut out all the necessary carbs, like really went on like 12 to 16 week aggressive sprints, hitting the gym relentlessly, boxing, all these things. And that like created a new kind of way of thinking for me as well, because it unclogged a lot of the brain fog that I would have. Right. And so the finding of the balance comes when you have some sort of stability in the business or in your entrepreneurship journey that you have. So then when you start figuring out, like, you have downtime, you've automated a lot of bit of that, you automated that, and the business isn't going to fail, now you can slowly start shifting towards like, all right, well, how can I start taking care of myself? To avoid those like crash outs, you want to start surrounding yourself around people who have a positive outlook on thing and you know, kind of push you to be the better version of yourself. You always want to start taking care of yourself, because when you take care of yourself, other people respect you even more.
100%.
Right? So I can't be this like fat blob that's walking around, right, and preaching.
You're looking so much better than since I last saw you.
Thank
for sure,
you,
man. No.
Thank you. Still got some ways to go, but
great progress.
Thank you.
I mean,
Thank you.
I have a quick little question on that. You think there is a scenario where you can kind of do both?
No.
Or like,
no, you'd have to be a Chad.
as you're trying to take care of yourself?
You can. There are like other people who have that.
But I guess not to like the
totally.
full, you can't do this to the full extent of like, yo, let me go and cold punch for 3 hours, do a proper workout.
No, dude, that's like 5, 6. That's like 5 hours.
That.
Like you go to the gym. I'm in the gym 2 hours, right? Minimum. I'm on the treadmill for an hour, low intensity, and I'm doing weights. And then after that, I'm doing a sauna. That's like 2.5, 3 hours that went by that I could have focused on building the business. Right. I could have focused on figuring out areas of weaknesses for my business and figuring out new opportunities. You also have to be really terminally online nowadays, right? To like really seize opportunities. And so how are you going to do that when you have to be glued to your computer screen 24/7? Especially my business. Now, some other people have different businesses, which is fine. And like, if you're able to balance, which a lot of people do really well, like good for you. I just I didn't have those resources when I grew up, and the path that I took required me to be 100% of my business, and that's it. Then after that, I started taking care of myself, right? I was like, the business isn't going to fall apart if I go work out 2 hours. If I do boxing in the morning and I do training in the evening, like it's not going to fall apart. The eating, right? Like the consuming of the food, I just, you know, I'm a foodie and I've always coped with stress through food.
For sure.
And that also like got, you know, put me in a position to gain weight. And so I had to just cut that shit out. Just had to be hard on myself. I also had a lot of good food. Like I've had the best food you can possibly have, right? Because I've been able to go to restaurants, I've been so blessed to try all these different things. At some point, it got pretty repetitive. I was like, all right, I already know how that's going to taste. True. Let me just put that off for 6 months to a year, get my health on track, and then after that, be at a very conservative, you know, maintenance kind of level, rather than like always trying to be like, oh, I'm doing a hard diet, and you're just falling in the perpetual loop of like getting out of it.
You gave in, and then you're feeling guilty, and it's like a weird like cycle.
You got to get to a place of stability.
Yep.
Right? Like with same thing with work, like you'll get to a place of stability. Even with your fitness, you'll get to a place of stability, right? You're already in shape. You already have good, healthy habits. Now all you got to just maintain the business and maintain yourself. And then at that point, that's when you really have pure balance. Right. And then what's the next thing? Family, relationships, right? Then you're like this perfectly even spread person, and you're going to have problems that come in between, but you found balance in business. You found balance of yourself, mental clarity, physical being. And then now it's family, right? It's like, I want, you know, a lot of people don't want family. That's cool. I want a family. I've had a lady for 11 years, and you know, the next chapter of our life is like having a kid, right? And like the beauty about it is like, I could delay the process of having a kid, but then I'm not going to be able to pick my kid up and run around because I'm going to be too old, right? Or too out of shape. So like doing these things now, there's never a perfect time. You got to just do it right now. And at that point, that's when you find balance. When you have a kid, you can vicariously live through them and see the joy in their new experiences, right? So you start finding happiness in all these new things, and that's kind of like the path that I'm headed on now. But it only required you finding balance in your life. A lot of people who maybe have a perfect work and health lifestyle probably come from a stable household.
True.
I came from an unstable fucking household. So like, if anything failed, you're ass on the street. Good luck hitting the gym. Yeah, you'll be in Venice Beach or in Miami Beach literally doing push-ups. Yeah, but you're poor. You're literally poor. So like, don't like, there's really nothing else, right? And then you're in shape, and now you got to spend time figuring out what you're going to do to succeed. And like, yeah, like there's, you know, pros and cons. Again, everything is subjective to the individual. This was just the path that I chose. And,
100%.
you know, thankfully I'm not too old to change my life habits, right?
No, man, we so young, bro.
Yeah, exactly.
We so young. And I did a podcast with one of my friends, Renee, the other day. He recently had a daughter, and he said it's the type of love he's never felt before.
Exactly.
Conditional love, you know. Yeah. So I'm excited for you to enter that chapter of your life very soon, man. It's going to be amazing. But before we even end this, we got to touch on a topic that's, you know, a passion for you and even me, food. You've exposed me to a lot of like dope spots in Miami, different cuisines. Let's talk about that, man. If you had to listen, I mean, this is a very hard question, but like top 3 cuisine for you, right? If you had to hone in on top 3, what would it be?
Yeah.
Let's talk about the good first, because I want to talk about the bad as well.
It will definitely be Asian gastronomy.
What is that?
It's like gastronomy is like really good food. Yeah, like really good food is basically.
Side note as well, I think one of the last times I went to dinner with you, you ordered the whole menu.
We're going out today.
And then we did credit card roulette, and Luca hit on Luca. Yes, thank God it hit on Luca.
I love that. I love credit card roulette.
Yeah, that was amazing. I remember, I think when we said we're going to do credit card roulette, I'm like, let me get more drinks, because if I'm paying, I'm enjoying it. If
Down
you guys
20 bands.
If you guys are enjoying, if you're paying, I'm enjoying it. But okay, so Asian gastronomy, okay.
Yeah, and then
So what are some dishes in that?
I mean, you talk about Asian fusion, sushi, right? Like very, very like modern take on traditional cuisines. I think right after that is probably a battle between Mediterranean, just because I grew up on that. So like having that back in your life, kind of you kind of reminisce of the old memories, your mom cooking and stuff. And then Italian,
Can't go wrong with Italian.
Can't go wrong with Italian. So those are.
Have you ever
my
tried
top 3.
Nepalese food?
No, I haven't.
Come to when you're in Toronto next, definitely hit me up. I
Dude, it's a short flight.
Yeah, man.
I was there in the winter. That shit was disgusting.
Yeah, I probably wasn't there. I was in South Africa for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, but no, Nepalese food, very, very good. Yeah, I love Jamaican food too, man.
Yeah.
Jamaican food,
Yeah.
Growing up in Toronto, having
oh my god, the jerk chicken goes crazy. Oxtail
with rice and peas, man. Oof. Come on, man. What you know about the oxtail?
I'm
gravy? Hungry. But how about some cuisines you're not really too fond of?
I mean, I'm not like a picky eater. So
you're open to try anything once? Right?
Oh, for sure. I'm open. Yeah, there's stuff that obviously I won't have every day. I mean, Jamaican.
What's the most exotic thing you've had? Actually, I'm curious on that.
Well, Jamaican food for sure. Actually, Cuban food, I'm not like the craziest about. I find it a little bit on the dry side, but like people, I mean, we're in Miami, so you got Cubans left and right.
Don't hate, man.
Yeah. I mean, I love the Miami shakes. I love the chicken and rice and stuff, but I find it like always sitting on the dry side of things. There's not a lot of innovation, but it's like, close to the hip, close to home food. And so like, I can respect that. So I think that's probably my least favorite. And then, I'm not going to cook Jamaican food at home. Like that shit's so Indian food, Jamaican food, like the spice, like it is really intricate stuff to cook. So, and I cook, right? So I know that I can show the respect that goes into it. Even Asian food, like anything that's outside of American cuisine, you talk about levels of spices and like, marinating and preparation that just takes a long time.
And the level of effort the Japanese put on their art, it's a craft. Like,
it's a craft.
Sushi and everything. Yeah. Someone that I know appreciates food can appreciate the work that goes behind that.
I'll go crazy at an omakase spot. Oh, I'll go 100%. Crazy.
You been to Japan?
Huh? No, I'm going this year.
Bro,
first time.
Like some of the best food I've had.
I feel like that's gonna be my second home.
Like easily. Yeah. I remember my family friend asked me where I wanted to go, and I said the Skiji Fish Market. I'm like, take me there. That's the only place I wanted to go. Had some of the best bluefin like ever.
Nice.
Ever there. But man, this was an amazing podcast, man. I really had a great time catching up with you, you know what I'm saying? Getting to understand the story a little bit more as well. Before we head out, you want to talk about anything that's exciting you right now? Actually, would love to talk a little bit about AI before we go on. How you think AI is going to change our day-to-day life and also your nature of business?
Yeah, I mean, on a day-to-day life, I think we're going to have a lot of full autonomy. So a lot of the things that you would do on the labor side of things, whether it's driving, whether it's mowing your lawn, all that's going to be fully automated. And I think the industry is going in that direction. I think that's where a lot of the sector is going into, right? It's just how do you take the most tedious, laborious things away from humans and kind of automate that. So I think there's a beauty in that. It's also really scary too, because your window of escaping the matrix is closing. Because
in a way you're right, man, 100%.
No, it's becoming
100%.
It's becoming one. If you're in the creative industry, you're an engineer, like you're not fucked. It's just you got to be in the top 1%.
Yeah.
You got to be really good. So like it's going to go from generalists, which like, you would hire a generalist and you'll be okay with mediocre output, and they'll use AI to improve their workflow. But it's going to go to any human interaction or any human service is going to come down to just pure specialists at this
100%.
point. And everything else is going to be automated. You're going to have people who are going to be one-man armies using AI and automation to their advantage. But that window that we had of you figuring things out is becoming smaller and smaller and smaller, especially if you're building a digitally native business, right? Or if you're in a creative industry or you're in a tech field, a lot of that is going to get automated. You know, there is going to be a crazy shift in the industry, and I don't know what it's going to do to our economy. It's pretty scary, and like no one's thinking of any ramifications. No one's doing any preventative measures. I mean, I know there are companies that are, but like everybody's so busy focused on trying to outship each other. It's the war of AI right now. I mean, everybody's trying to build the best models, right?
Even the countries, man, China versus US, you know, who's going to come out on top.
And you thought, and yeah, I mean, we made a lot of big mistakes, you know, with, you know, semiconductors and where they're produced and stuff. And, you know, we made a lot of mistakes as United States on, you know, underestimating the power of AI and what it's going to do. And now you have humanoid robots that are going to come into the picture, which is the next big thing. You know, if you want to think about the sector you want to be in, it's kind of going in there. If anybody's an engineer, like you want to go into the robotics industry and kind of helping shape the humanoid robotics. But again, that's going to create really, really tough situations for a lot of people who aren't as bright as you, right? Who can't just wake up and figure out how to make magic internet money or like to commercialize their skills, right? A lot of the everyday Joes who are working at, you know, regular 9-to-5 jobs, warehouses, like they're all going to get replaced, and it's only going to come down to the specialists, right? The people who can oversee, 100%. You know, the operations. And so it's going to get pretty interesting how it's affecting our business. I don't think it has any negative implications on our business. If anything, because of the community, because of the token, it's creating new, interesting kind of internet dynamics where people can utilize the likeness of the AI and then go create their own stories. I mean, the likeness of the Pudgy Penguins IP, create their own stories, their own content, and then use the token to kind of capitalize on that. So it's really kind of crypto and AI play hand in hand.
And I think
together.
a lot of people that are adopting Pudgy Penguins, they are more open to innovation and more open to like new technology. So these are probably people that are already adopting or already ahead.
Yeah, I mean, we're adopting AI fully. I mean, the things that I wasn't able to do before, I'm a one-man army beast now.
Yeah.
Like now it's like I've always been very eloquent with my writing. I've always kind of understood how to use certain reasoning frameworks and things like that for my advantage. But that a lot of that came from my knowledge of like reading books and like studying founders and to understand how they use first principle thinking for a lot of their work. And so if you don't understand how to take these existing frameworks that entrepreneurs use or just in general, like rules of thumb and like best practices, if you don't know what these, you know, these frameworks are and all these tools and just ways of thinking and use it to talk and have, you know, this open dialogue with with AI, you're going to get left behind. But the people who do know, like for me, because I'm exposed to a lot of this stuff, I just simply take it and I throw it through a prompt. I'm saying using first principles thinking, using the adaptive reasoning frameworks, right? Like help me understand this problem and like the prompting game. I mean, I'm a beast when it comes to like understanding problems and like dissecting it and like working towards solutions. And because I know design, because I know how to manage operations, because I know a little bit about a lot, right? It allows me to like go take progressive measures to like solving problems without needing the need on like a specialist to come in and tell me what to do. All these resources are already available. You just got to go get it. And you have to be knowledgeable enough to know how to speak to these, you know, to these models. Right, like you have to understand how to have these conversations. Right. You know, your prompt is as good as your answer.
Yeah, input equals output.
Exactly.
Right? Input equals output, and I tell a lot of people, man, if AI is not giving you the output you're looking for, take accountability. Take accountability in the input that you're prompting. You know, what are you putting? Right, it's only good at, the output is only good as the input. Yeah. And another thing I also say, which you just touched on, is like, you know, your biggest threat is not AI; it's the person using AI.
Yeah.
Right. It's going to be that person using AI. And even today, man, like I was just, you know, learning some AI agents, and there were some positions I was going to like literally hire VAs for. And I'm like, oh, I don't need it.
Just automate all of it.
I don't need it. Yeah. Like I'm just going to build an AI agent that is going to do a better job, you know? And it's, again, it's,
we spent years on, I mean, engineers and programmers were the most, you know, highly sought after careers, right? Like the guys who knew how to talk to computers, right, were the guys who were highly paid. Those guys, because they knew how to talk to computers, made these computers so they learn how to talk our language. Yeah. Right. And so that's what AI is. It just talks in our language. And so you no longer have to be this wizard engineer who knows how to write code and speak code, right? Like, you could just speak freely and openly and get the results that you want. And so that's
100%.
the shift in the industry that we have now. For creatives, I mean, you know, there's a lot of like AI automated editing tools and things like that. Like they can help you expedite your workflow.
You're more efficient as a editor,
as a one-man
graphics.
army.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And like, has it replaced anybody in our team? No, but we are running very, very nimble as an organization. And because we have AI to our advantage, there's no reason why somebody's like, well, I can't think of an idea. It's like, well, use Midjourney to generate and throw some prompts and like let that create a few composition ideas for you. Don't go copying it, but like that should be an idea starter for you, right? Or on the engineering side, if we want to expedite workflow for like shipping a product, it's like everybody should be using AI to their advantage 100%. To, you know, clean up code, right? To make sure you push through, you know, certain bottlenecks that have to do with shipping a product, right? So I think those are a lot of benefits in AI, but it's going to get really, really, really scary and very aggressive in the next 5 years.
Oh man,
because nobody is slowing down.
Hell no, and
nobody's stopping to think, hey, is this bad? And the thing is in the big rooms, the big conferences with the top industry leaders, the thing is they will say these things. Somebody will raise their hand and be like, hey, what if? And the problem is we'll solve that when we get there. They're just they're just kicking the can down the road because everybody's in this aligned like mission of like,
AGI.
ouch, exactly.
Let's get there as soon as we can. Not really thinking about
it's gonna take an event of 50 to 100 million deaths for us to be able to create parameters for AI. That's
scary.
Yeah, 50 to 100 million deaths.
That's
huge.
That's very huge. But yeah, you know, I think right now we're living in a silent revolution, and those who know, you know, and that are preparing. But Peter, man, thank you so much for coming on, man.
Of course.
An elite entrepreneur here, and someone that's like a big bro to me. Again, great conversations today, and I can't wait to do this again in a couple of years, man.
You got to come down to Miami, bro.
Yes, way more often, man. Way more often, man. I can't be coming here once a year, man. I gotta come here more often. I'm even thinking of staying here for like fall time, fall season before I go to Cape Town.
Yeah,
but
fall season's nice.
Guys, hope you guys enjoyed today's episode, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.
Oh yeah, bro.
Bro, that was fucking clean.
Nice.